I have to say I'd probably been a royal bencher at the Inner Temple longer than I had realized. I've seen a few changes over time, but Project Pegasus is something entirely different. It was supposed to be a calm afternoon behind the palace walls, a private meeting with senior royals. No cameras, no press, just family. But what started as a closed-door session quickly turned into an explosive event that shocked the monarchy to its core. Those who witnessed it described it as an emotional outburst decades in the making. A heated exchange between two of the most well-known women in the royal family, Princess Anne, the late Queen's only daughter, and Queen Camilla, once the scorned mistress who now holds the crown by marriage. Yet it was more than just an argument. It was like a battle. By the end, furniture had been moved around, assistants were dismissed, and Camilla left in tears. Within days, the House of Lords, a body rarely involved in royal matters, issued an unexpected and unprecedented decision. Queen Camilla would be banned from attending official royal legislative sessions and denied access to the House for the rest of her life, along with any privileges tied to being a lord. Essentially, she was pushed out of the heart of British aristocracy. The announcement caused shockwaves throughout Westminster, Buckingham Palace, and the entire Commonwealth. Never before had Parliament publicly reprimanded the Crown's consort in such a symbolic way. Never before had royal dignity been so severely damaged in front of insiders and political leaders. But for those who were paying attention, this didn't happen suddenly. It was the result of a long-standing feud fueled by loyalty, legacy, and grudges dating back to Diana's era. Princess Anne, known for her straightforward dedication and dislike of flashy theatrics, had apparently kept quiet for years. But when Camilla crossed one line too many, allegedly disrespecting Anne's position and undermining the Queen's legacy, the gloves came off. With Camilla embarrassed, King Charles shaken, and Princess Anne standing her ground, one question lingered over the monarchy. Was this the breaking point for the House of Windsor? This is the story of how a whispered insult spiraled into a constitutional crisis, and how Princess Anne may have saved the monarchy by toppling a queen. To understand how the royal family reached this point, you have to look back decades before Camilla became queen and long before Charles's marriage to Diana. History, loyalty, and loss all played a part in the tense relationship between Princess Anne and Camilla. The public saw a carefully maintained front, with polite smiles at official dinners and nods at royal events. But behind closed doors, a cold conflict simmered between two women with very different views on what royalty should represent. Princess Anne, the second child of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, was raised to serve. She was serious, hard-working, and very blunt, uninterested in fame. She hated the glitz that surrounded the press and often said the monarchy should lead through service, not spectacle, and never sought the spotlight. She earned respect through tireless effort, consistently leading in royal duties year after year. To her, titles meant nothing without discipline. She was very much her mother's daughter. Camilla, meanwhile, came into the royal family not by birthright but through scandal and determination. Her decades-long relationship with Charles, which overlapped with his marriage to Diana, made her an outcast in the eyes of many Britons. While a well-orchestrated media campaign and the passage of time helped soften public opinion, Anne's memories of how she joined the royal family stayed clear. According to sources, Anne viewed Camilla as an unfit consort from the start, someone who weakened the crown's moral standing, harmed Charles's legacy, and stained the Windsor reputation. One former royal official said Anne believed that if Camilla truly loved Charles, she would have stepped aside to protect the institution rather than force her way in. Tensions first became noticeable at Charles and Camilla's 2005 wedding. Anne attended with a cold demeanor. Experts in royal body language noted Anne barely acknowledged Camilla during the ceremony. There was little conversation, eye contact, or smiles. From that moment on, every family gathering became a quiet battle of wills. Camilla, buoyed by Charles's devotion and growing public acceptance, began to assert herself more within royal circles. Meanwhile, Anne grew increasingly critical of Camilla's behavior, viewing it as theatrical and self-serving. Over time, the cold treatment turned into subtle, passive-aggressive digs. At charity events, Anne often took precedence over Camilla's opinions. During family vacations, Anne reportedly chose to stay at separate residences to avoid tension. Seating arrangements had to be carefully planned to keep the two women apart. Insiders knew Princess Anne and Queen Camilla couldn't tolerate each other. But the final breaking point came recently during a high-level family meeting in Windsor. The discussion was meant to cover upcoming royal duties, especially as King Charles's health declined. Tensions were already running high. According to palace sources, Camilla interrupted Anne mid-sentence and allegedly called her a relic of the past. The comment lingered like poison in the room. Anne, who had devoted over 50 years of loyal service to the crown, reportedly stood up, slammed her notes on the table, and said, "You wouldn't know duty if it hit you in the face." What followed was a volley of harsh remarks, with Anne bringing up Camilla's past scandals, Diana's memory, and the Queen's legacy. Charles apparently tried to step in, but Anne cut him off. "She insulted everything Mother stood for," Anne said, according to one insider. "And you let her." Camilla left in tears. Anne had spoken out loud for the first time what many family members and the public had quietly believed for years. This was no longer a quiet rivalry. It was an outright confrontation, and the consequences would be beyond the king's control. What started as a heated dispute within Windsor Castle quickly escalated into a constitutional crisis. Within days of the clash between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla, the unexpected happened. The House of Lords convened an emergency closed-door session, one of the most unusual in modern royal history. The topic? Queen Camilla's behavior and whether it permanently damaged the crown's dignity. Insiders said this was about more than family drama. It was about safeguarding the monarchy's reputation during a time of great uncertainty. With King Charles's health worsening and public confidence in royal leadership fading, parliamentarians and royal advisers faced a difficult question. What do you do when the Queen Consort becomes a liability? The answer came swiftly and was unprecedented. After a 2-day inquiry involving select peers, constitutional advisers, and testimony from palace officials, the House of Lords issued an extraordinary reprimand. In a formal statement that shook the nation, the Lords declared Camilla permanently unfit to uphold the dignity, honor, and ethical standards expected of the monarchy. The language was direct, without the usual royal diplomacy. Camilla, the Queen Consort, was officially barred from performing royal duties for life. The statement clarified that this was neither a removal nor a loss of her title. Camilla remains Queen Consort in name only, but her active role in the daily affairs of the crown has ended. She will no longer participate in state events. She will no longer act as a representative of the monarchy abroad. Her name will be taken off all upcoming ceremonial occasions, and she will no longer sign or approve any official documents. For the British public, the decision felt surreal. One day, Camilla attended charity galas and hosted luncheons. The very next day, she was effectively removed from royal life, not by the king or a palace aide, but by the nation's legislative body. This was the most decisive rejection of a reigning royal in modern British history. Constitutional experts explained that the Lords invoked a rarely used part of the Royal Household Act of 1937, which grants Parliament the authority to revoke a royal's privileges if their conduct is judged seriously harmful to public trust or the monarchy's functioning. Until now, this rule had never been applied. Moreover, the decision was reportedly backed behind the scenes by an unexpected group, including senior royals, experienced politicians, and even moderate Republicans. Though some might have expected opposition to such a bold move, very few spoke out. Even Charles, usually fiercely protective of Camilla, did not intervene. It was as if he understood. A source told the Times he loved her, but knew she wouldn't win this fight. More importantly, the Crown couldn't allow her to remain in the spotlight. Clarence House remained quiet afterward. No official statement was released, and Camilla made no public comment. The only sign of activity was when blacked-out limousines were seen leaving a side gate heading to a secret location outside London, believed to be Ray Mill House, Camilla's private retreat in Wiltshire. Perhaps the most striking image appeared the next morning. Camilla's profile was removed from the official royal family website homepage, where her picture had once stood beside Charles. Now, only the king appeared, flanked by William and Catherine. For many, the message was unmistakable. The monarchy was shifting, and Camilla would no longer be part of it. Reactions across the UK were mixed but intense. Royal supporters praised the House of Lords for defending its dignity. Others, especially supporters of Diana's legacy, called it long overdue justice. However, some were concerned about the precedent set. If the House of Lords could silence a queen consort, what else could they do? One thing was clear. The royal institution, once seen as untouchable, had shown it could still discipline its own. The monarchy had drawn a firm line. Camilla had crossed it. Within the quiet halls of Buckingham Palace, the king sat alone. For hours after the House of Lords announcement, King Charles III reportedly remained in his private study with the blinds drawn and aides dismissed. He had just witnessed the unimaginable. The woman he had spent decades defending, protecting, and finally crowning queen was officially exiled by his own government. According to royal insiders, the king's silence came from sorrow rather than anger. Charles saw this as a personal tragedy, not a political defeat. Together, the couple had faced countless scandals, public scrutiny, and family resistance. Camilla's sudden loss of influence, respect, and role left him, as one aide said, devastated beyond recognition. Behind the scenes, the king made one last desperate effort to overturn the decision. Several urgent calls were placed to key members of the House of Lords. His private secretary reached out to constitutional advisors to challenge the ruling as emotionally driven and made without royal approval. Charles even sought a private meeting with the Prime Minister, an extremely rare step, in hopes of negotiating a compromise that would at least allow Camilla to keep some ceremonial duties. But nothing changed. According to sources in Westminster, the response was compassionate, yet firm. The crown is bigger than any consort, and right now Britain needs stability, not more controversy. The message was clear and strong. The king could grieve, but he couldn't overturn the decision made by Parliament. This reality seemed to plunge Charles into deep inner conflict. Over the next 2 days, he canceled many meetings, pulled out of planned events, and was notably absent from a state briefing he had prepared himself. Camilla, meanwhile, remained completely out of the public eye, secluded at her private residence, unreachable by the media, and apparently only speaking with her children. One especially striking moment reportedly happened at the palace chapel, where Charles was seen alone with his head bowed for over an hour. A pastor later described him as a man pleading for time to turn back, but it wasn't only sorrow. Those close to Charles said there was something more simmering beneath the surface: guilt. From the start, it was his choice to bring Camilla into the spotlight. He fought hard to name her queen consort, despite advisors warning about public backlash. He disregarded his mother's original plan to limit her role, and perhaps naively, he believed time would heal old wounds. Instead, those wounds reopened in the worst possible way. Many wonder if Charles regrets his decision. He may have set the stage for Camilla's downfall by pushing her into a role the public never fully accepted. By ignoring warnings, he sealed her fate. The cruelest irony? In her final months, the Queen reportedly voiced concerns to both Charles and Princess Anne about Camilla's growing impact on public trust in the monarchy. Those worries, like many others, were acknowledged politely but quietly set aside. They now resonate louder than ever. Despite his sorrow, Charles soon appeared significantly older, much thinner, and according to an aide, carrying the burden of two crowns, one of duty and one of grief. But the decision stood. The crown had spoken. Not even the king could reverse it. At that moment, Charles III faced a harsh truth. Love can move a man, but it cannot move a monarchy. While the monarchy was shaken and King Charles mourned quietly, one woman stood firm, her gaze steady, her voice strong. Princess Anne. Known for her unwavering dedication and blunt honesty, she had long been a quiet guardian of royal tradition within the palace. After the emotional confrontation with Camilla and the House of Lords' unusual ruling, Anne finally spoke out. Not for attention or praise, but for the institution she had pledged to protect. This was never about personal feelings, she reportedly told a top aide. It was about the crown, and the crown must remain untarnished. Anne's breaking point wasn't one event, but a gradual erosion. Years of watching Camilla push past her ceremonial boundaries, inserting herself into decisions, and most seriously, trying to influence Princess Charlotte's future role in the family. That final incident was the last straw. Anne saw the confrontation as a fundamental violation of royal discipline, no matter how private. "She broke everything we stand for," Anne was heard telling a longtime staff member. "This isn't a soap opera. This is the crown." That phrase became a rallying cry throughout the palace in the days that followed. Despite his sorrow, Charles couldn't argue with that. Anne had always been the monarchy's strongest support, unyielding, practical, and fiercely loyal to the king above all else, even family. She was the only royal who never sought the spotlight or the throne, yet completed more public duties than all her brothers combined. To her, royalty was never about appearance. It was about sacrifice. And in her view, Camilla had crossed a line no amount of title or affection could excuse. Insiders said Anne had long kept detailed diaries and records of Camilla's off-the-record remarks, private actions, and suspected interference in family affairs, just in case a decision needed to be made. She believed the moment had finally come. She delivered her verdict with unwavering resolve. When asked privately by a close friend if she felt any guilt over the public reaction, Anne reportedly said, "Guilt? No. I feel sorry for my brother. Guilt? Not at all." Even those who had once seen Anne as too rigid or old-fashioned found themselves supporting her. Her refusal to back down, compromise, or be swayed by emotional appeals to protect a centuries-old institution is widely credited with helping stabilize the monarchy during a turbulent time. Anne's popularity soared. Editorials praised her as the last true royal, someone who never sought fame or attention but earned her place through years of loyal service. Photos and memes capturing her stern expression from the confrontation went viral with captions like, "When duty calls, Anne answers without hesitation." According to royal insiders, it was Anne's private briefing to key members of the House of Lords, delivered calmly, thoroughly, and without self-interest, that convinced them to take the unprecedented step of barring Camilla from royal duties permanently. It wasn't about revenge. It was about principle. The crown is sacred, and no one, not even the queen consort, is above its rules. As things settled, one fact became clear. Princess Anne might never wear the crown, but at that moment, she was the embodiment of it, unyielding, incorruptible, and vital. As news of Camilla's lifetime ban from royal responsibilities spread through Buckingham Palace, reactions extended far beyond the palace walls, reaching as far as Meghan Markle and Prince Harry across the Atlantic, who watched with a mix of disbelief and quiet satisfaction. Meghan had been quietly warning close friends for months that Camilla's growing influence was dangerous and manipulative. Some dismissed her concerns, but the recent feud between Camilla and Princess Anne seemed to confirm them. A former Montecito staffer said Meghan described the news as a long-overdue reckoning, even writing, "Finally." Someone had called Camilla's bluff. In contrast, Harry was more reserved publicly. Despite his estrangement from the family, Harry was deeply troubled watching the monarchy unravel from afar. A longtime friend said he never liked Camilla, but didn't want to see such a public humiliation, especially one tied to his father's pain. The irony was hard to ignore. Years ago, Harry and Meghan were mocked, pushed out, and accused of breaking royal rules. Now, the same system that turned against them had turned inward, consuming one of its own. Not all royals were pleased with Camilla's fall. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, usually more passive in royal affairs, were reportedly shocked. Although they didn't always agree with Camilla's views, they saw her as a steady presence during difficult times. Sources said Eugenie felt uneasy about how quickly the decision was made and worried about the potential consequences for future royal disputes, especially as the younger generation steps forward. Meanwhile, Prince George and Princess Charlotte largely avoided media attention. But whispers around the palace confirmed Charlotte was deeply affected by the bullying incident that sparked the scandal. One courtier said she now stays unusually close to Princess Anne at events, almost as if seeing her as a protector. As for Prince William, who tried to calm things behind the scenes before the House of Lords stepped in, the reactions from his cousins and brother placed him in the middle of a generational struggle over the monarchy's future. Insiders believe William hoped the issue would be handled quietly, but seeing the impact on Charlotte and understanding what Anne endured to uphold tradition, he accepted the fallout, even from those closest to him. And then there was King Charles. Still shaken by the public humiliation and spectacle, Charles reportedly refused to speak with Harry in the days after the ban. A senior advisor said the monarch was overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the situation, compounded by the feeling that his family was deeply fractured. The monarchy, long seen as a symbol of unity and continuity, now appeared fragile, vulnerable, and more human than ever. This was not just a scandal. It was a reckoning. While some royals felt vindicated, others feared the divisions would only deepen. Family members faced a choice: protect the crown's reputation by staying silent or risk becoming the next headline by speaking out. After Camilla's lifetime suspension, the British public quickly expressed their feelings, which were impossible to miss. Social media exploded with hashtags like #PrincessAnneNow, #CamillaOut, and the unexpectedly heartfelt #Diana would be proud. What began as a palace scandal ignited a firestorm across the country, reshaping loyalties in real time. Polling firms rushed to gauge public opinion, and the results were devastating for Camilla. A quick YouGov survey conducted within 24 hours of the House of Lords announcement found that 72% of respondents supported Camilla's removal. What surprised royal watchers most was the surge of public admiration for Princess Anne. She's everything the monarchy is supposed to represent. One caller to BBC Radio 5 Live described her as dignified, reliable, and no-nonsense. She has carried that family for decades, and they tried to pretend she was just the spare daughter. Now look who's standing strong. Few anticipated how social media would capture those sentiments. TikTok has been filled with clips of Princess Anne over the years, her serious expression at international events, quietly walking behind her father's funeral procession, and silencing tough reporters with a single look. One popular post declared, "The crown picked the wrong queen," showing Anne next to a fading image of Camilla in royal dress. Even people usually uninterested in royal news spoke up. "I don't care about the monarchy," one Twitter user said, "but if there has to be one, put Anne on the throne. At least she earned it." British newspapers ranged from supportive to harsh. The Daily Mail wrote, Anne wins hearts as Camilla exits stage left. The Guardian called it a crisis of character, describing it as the wrong woman wearing the crown and calling it Anne's revenge. But the most powerful response wasn't from tabloids or social media. It was the quiet sea of flowers outside Buckingham Palace. Dozens of cards addressed to the true queen, Princess Anne, decorated the gates, along with drawings from children and heartfelt messages from elderly fans. One card simply read, "Thank you, Princess Anne, for your strength, honor, and quiet dignity. We see you. We always have." In a monarchy often criticized for being disconnected, this moment reminded the British people that responsibility matters more than titles, and that the public is always watching. It all began with quiet, tense whispers of rivalry and betrayal. The House of Lords' decision to remove the Queen Consort, rather than a public vote or scandalous headline, surprised many. Camilla, once at the heart of a royal revival, was now sidelined, not by rebellion, but by consequences. This was not a minor dispute over protocol or style. It was the climax of decades of unresolved conflict between old-world loyalty and modern entitlement, between the crown and the woman who married into it amid controversy and emerged from the fallout of a broken triangle. In the end, Camilla's downfall was not caused by Diana, the press, or even the Queen's memory. It was Anne. Princess Anne, steady and determined, did more than expose Camilla's faults. She reminded the world what royalty once meant: integrity, service, discretion, and sacrifice. When the choice came down to the appearance of strength or its reality, the monarchy chose Anne's resolve over Camilla's show. Now that the dust has settled, Camilla is remembered not as a graceful queen, but as a cautionary example. A royal undone by her own ambition and poor alliances. Her name will live on not in celebration, but as a footnote of royal missteps. And what about the crown she briefly wore? It still shines, but not on her head. For now it passes quietly into the future, with Anne secure and Camilla almost broken. Finally, you can wear the jewels, stand beside a monarch, and wave to the crowd. But without the people's trust, the throne will reject you. Camilla was crowned by marriage. The people crowned Anne, and history will tell the difference.